welcome once again, May.
Thank you. Again. Yes.
So May is a mental health advocate. We met about 8 months ago, and something that really impressed me about you when we first met is how open you were, just talking about your own experiences. And then later on, when I got to know you a little bit more, to hear that you kind of took the time to open this discussion, and specifically with reaching Thai young people, and kind of trying to remove the taboo around this whole topic. So how did you how did you get into this whole thing? Because it's not, I want to say it's not normal, but it's not so many, it's not in that many people's awareness. So how did you get to the point where you're like doing TED Talks about mental health and depression? What led you to that?
So I started out being depressed, and then I also had eating disorders. And actually, at first, I thought being depressed was kind of normal. I thought had, like, everyone felt like this, that it was just normal. And I didn't think that anything was wrong with me. But then, the eating disorders kind of kind of solidified the status of illness for me. So I started seeking out help, and then after I sought out some help, I meant like educated myself on had like mental education. So I started reading books. I went to I did. I'm doing a master's on mental health. Also, this is all mostly it's for myself, also, but also for other people.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started talking about it openly. First of all, on Facebook, just to share my experiences, because I do know a lot of people are going through the same thing, but they don't talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they don't talk about it openly, or a lot of people might think that it's just normal when it's not. So I felt that it was important to let them know that, wanting to die every day is not normal. I
Yeah,
guess.
yeah, we can aim a
Yeah.
little higher than that, I think. Yeah,
Yeah.
and because I also in my early 20s had probably, I'd say, well, it depends on how you would classify it, probably mild depression. But there was, for me, one of the most difficult thing was admitting that I had a problem, and then asking for help, because I felt a lot of shame around, like, there was something wrong with me, and I didn't want to publicly or even privately ask for support. And so, how was that an easy process for you? And was that considered normal or encouraged within the environment that you grew up in or was in at that time?
Well, actually, it was very hard. First of all, it took me years to admit that. It took me, first of all, I had to like sort of live with it, because I didn't know that it was a sickness. And then when I realized that it was a sickness, I had to, muster up the courage to go find help. And also, I had to tell because I was pretty young at the time, I had to tell my parents, and talking to them was hard.
Mm,
And then going to seek help. And in Thailand, it's very much, if you go to see a psychiatrist, that means there's something wrong, as in you might be a little off your rockers. Is that the expression?
that is the
And
expression.
yeah, so it's very taboo, and it was very hard, and we didn't really know where to go, because,
Yeah,
like, there was one or two big hospitals that specialize in the crazy, the loony bin. It's like,
yeah.
it's very much the loony bin of Bangkok, and that's all we knew. And
Mm,
so I had to start it asking around, and, like, educating myself more on where I should be going, who I should be seeing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I
And
think.
like,
Oh, sorry.
yeah,
For
sorry. And like, even after I started seeing the doctors and I started taking the meds, some people in even people in my family thought that I was just just creating this sickness, that it's not actually real, and that it's just all in my head, which is kind of true.
Yeah, yeah.
But
They got a point. Yeah,
yeah,
I know what you mean though. That it's like, oh, it's just you're pretending almost.
yeah.
Mm.
Or that it's, oh, you just, this is just a phase, or something like
Yeah,
that.
just phasing going through. Yeah, that. Um, I mean, it was similar for me. I mean, I think that as much as anybody else, what their opinion, I also thought, shit, does this mean I'm crazy? That was my belief as well as that stopped me really kind of speaking about it because I thought, well, if I ask for help, that is like me admitting that I'm mental, like literally mental, and that rather than just need some support. I'm going through some stuff that I don't know the exact statistics, but I know that most adults will experience some kind of depression within their life. So it's actually, of course, it is not normal in that that isn't any way to live. But it's also it is pretty common, and I think for me, like I don't know hear your opinion on this, but I think I'd kind of got it into like that means there's something wrong with my brain, not I'm just kind of experiencing some problems, right? It's like I have a medical problem with my brain rather than I'm just depressed. I don't know if that's a thing in Thailand or not.
Yeah, well, it's becoming more and more clinical. Like,
Mm,
people are understanding more and more that it's clinical and that it can be cured.
mm.
But back in my time, it would, well, not in my time, it's still
Back
in my
in the
time.
day, how old are you, man?
But back
Oh,
then, like maybe 5 years ago, a lot of people would kind of, for example, if you have depression and you're very reclusive, people would just think maybe you just like being in isolation and you hate people.
yeah,
Or yeah, or if some people are depressed and they become alcoholic, you're just a bad person.
yeah. Okay.
Or like, if you do drugs, you're a junkie. That's just the labels that they put on, us people who needed extra help, and we didn't know where to get it, and we only got it from, like, more comfort from substances, and so people kind of label us as such and such. Or
Mm,
even violent people, like depressed people become violent.
mm.
And so that's just, and they have trouble controlling their temper or emotions, and they just put labels on us and just disregard us as those things.
Yeah, like all of those things are really just symptoms. They're not like the cause, and not that of course people need to take responsibility for their own behaviors. But like if you don't deal with the cause, then dealing with the symptom is just yeah it's like whack-a-mole. You
Yeah,
might deal with someone's alcohol problem, but unless they've dealt with the cause, they're going to get maybe addicted to gambling or spending money or whatever. Um, and I think that is very common. And I mean, still, well, the drug policy in the UK is still pretty, I'd say, archaic in the way that it treats these kind of things. But what was it like as far as yeah, the support of people around you, like your peers? Was this something people were talking about openly or not? And yeah, because I know you did modeling, and obviously well, actually, I don't know. I don't want to make an assumption, but was that at all linked to the eating disorder or not?
Yeah, very much so, actually. And also, because I was modeling, there's a lot of positive reinforcement for me to get skinny.
Mm,
So it was a huge problem for me because at the time I kind of knew that I shouldn't be dieting anymore,
mm,
but I still was dieting, and I just it was really hard to to keep myself healthy and also keep myself in, like, eating, as in having money, get like earning money, earning a living, but also
yeah,
being healthy. Yeah. So, but at the same time, the community that I have, like my friends, the people I hang out with are not models.
mm,
The people I hang out with are very much intellectuals, in my idea.
yeah.
So they
Hence
a
why
lot of
I'm together, maybe.
yeah. So like a lot of them do have the same problems, as in, because we think a lot. A lot of my friends are very interested in philosophy.
Mm,
So that philosophy kind of triggers a lot of things in a lot of people, I think.
yeah.
Um, and
If-
so we all have
don't get into
this,
philosophy, kids.
get into philosophy, but be very aware that it's just theories.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of my friends, we have the same problems, and so many of my friends also have depression or bipolar disorder. So I kind of was in a community that did understand a lot of what I was going through, and did had have useful comments or useful suggestions for me when I was going through what I was going through. Yeah.
Mm.
So I was lucky in that sense.
Yeah, and I think that's important to mention because if anybody is struggling, like try. I mean, here the quarantine tribes a community. It's not specifically for mental health, but you want to try and surround yourself as best you can. It's not always possible with people that are supportive, and I know that isn't always possible. But yeah, this group is created for a community for health, and also the point about the eating disorder because it's something that I think is very relevant to a fitness group because we're here. People want to, like, of course, there's the health aspect. I'm sure most people want to get healthy, but at the same time, if we're honest, like, also most people want to look a certain way, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like, it's great to take pride in your appearance, um, but I think sometimes it does get too much out of skewed that the look that you're going for perhaps um, is taking precedent over your actual health. Like, there's no point in starving yourself. That isn't healthy. That isn't good for your body. And of course, we all have different types of body shapes and sizes. Um, and some, it will be kind of very, very difficult to reach a certain look. But yeah, I think that's important to let, health. When you're healthy, you hopefully you look good. But also, it's that is why the purpose of going to the gym, eating a certain way. It's not. Of course, you want to look a certain way as well, but getting that balance so it's not just completely superficial and you're feeling like crap, and actually even to the extent physically hurting yourself.
Yeah, the talk of the way you said balance. This is funny because well, not funny, but I've actually, a part of my eating disorder, or I I would say it's like, it's a little bit body dysmorphic, I guess.
Yeah. Mm,
Because a part of my eating disorder is that when I overeat, or if I don't purge,
mm,
I will over exercise.
mm.
As in, I used to do pole dancing, a lot of pole dancing, and I
Actually, I met
would
somebody who knew you through pole dancing. Yeah.
and I would go on the pole for so long that I would fall off,
Yeah.
literally.
Don't.
And I once hit my head on the pole because I did not have enough strength to go on, and I fell.
Mm.
Yeah, so this is an example of like maybe something that people have been saying that is positive, like too much of it.
Yeah, it's a balance. Like, of course, it's great to do physical exercise, but it probably wouldn't be necessary that you would try and make it up to that extent if you weren't doing that overeating in the first place. So it's like, again, the cause and the symptom. Um, and then to the point where you were actually like, fast forward a little bit, but you actually did a TED talk on mental health and speaking about this. And I know, just through myself doing public speaking and videos and such, it can be a scary experience. So how did you get that brave, mate?
Wow, I actually it was a lot of practice for the TED talk.
Hmm.
I had what the bravery came more from the practice,
Mhm.
but the bravery of speaking out, I guess, I gained from talking to people, a lot of people, and actually realizing that a lot of people have the same problem, and realizing that um, people actually would like to hear that other people are experiencing the same thing, so they don't feel like they're scared to talk about it. And I just believe that what I was doing at the time is coming from a place of um from a good place. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah. So and I'm not doing it to. I wasn't doing it to gain attention or like fame or anything. Just
Hmm.
just pure like I just wanna I just wanna put my story out there so people will not feel alone,
Yeah.
I guess. Yeah.
And I think the cool thing about what you did, and it's something that it does piss me off. I'm gonna say it pisses me off, especially in self-help, self-development, life coaching. You watch videos online, everybody's got all this fantastic advice, but nobody's talking about themselves. It's like all very theoretical and generic, and it's no, they're not risking anything. It's like you're asking other people to do this, just do this wacky 3-step technique to gain confidence. But like when I'm not saying it's done deliberately, but when somebody is actually going first and being brave or being vulnerable, like as in sharing their actual something that they're struggling or struggled with or actually still going through, I think it's much more powerful because it's like, well, this is real. This is not just somebody telling me what to do. It's like, are they going through it or they've been through it? And it's almost like giving the other person permission to, yeah, to have whatever the experience that they're having, rather than up on the mountain telling those people below you what you think they need to do. So I think that was really powerful that you did that. Was that like a deliberate thing, or you just or not? That I mean, as
Yeah.
you sharing your personal experience.
Yeah, it was deliberate. Yeah.
Cool.
At first I was I was talking like in the process of preparing that talk. It was very much about as you said, just like kind of telling people what to do
Yeah,
when
the
this
funky three
happens.
to cure depression, or how
Yeah,
yeah.
like theoretically. But then the more I wrote the talk, I felt like I didn't even believe my own words.
Yeah.
So I decided to trash everything and then start over. Yeah.
Cool. And how was the response when you did that? And like, obviously, I know you still currently you're doing it. What's the response like? And who and what? Yeah, what kind of people is it that you kind of get in touch with you? And yeah, what was
But
how's that?
the response was pretty overwhelmingly positive.
Mm.
Um, and I haven't had. Yeah, actually, the funny thing is that the only negative response was like people in my family.
Okay.
I'm
Yeah.
like, why are you doing this?
Yeah.
Something like that. But in the end, they came around because a lot of this talk was pretty viral, and in the end, they came around because like they realized from their friends had seen it, and a lot of them are um, mental health professionals, and so they had a talk with them, and then they realized that it's actually real.
Mm.
And but mostly very positive, and I get people calling me on my phone or like
Okay.
reaching out about their struggles and asking asking for asking for suggestions, or even asking for help, or like recommendations.
Mm.
Yeah,
Cool.
but yeah, I think it sparked quite a conversation around mental health. Yeah.
Yeah, a very needed one. Like, because even with I do events, and sometimes I've done events in the past, even something around like I do stuff on voice, and that's very much linked to, of course, there's a physical aspect, but there's also how you feel about yourself is linked to your voice. And I remember speaking to one woman who I'd seen struggling, and I said, look, I think you'd really benefit from maybe doing some private work, like because 100% she would have, like 100%. And I remember seeing the fear in her eyes, like she was like, no, 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 there's nothing wrong with me, like I just was about to you know confine her to the loony bin. And that, of course, that isn't always the response, but I realized, oh yeah, this is a much, in the UK it's still a taboo topic, but like I realized, oh, this is even more a taboo topic here. And this was a young woman, not like a 60-year-old, this was like someone in their 20s. And so yeah, pulling that or shining some light on that is I think really, really beneficial for everybody. And I know I want to kind of gone off a little bit from the original topic, but I think it's important we kind of establish this because it's so important for people to kind of just be okay, to be able to talk about what they're feeling, and realize, yeah, it doesn't mean they're mental or crazy. So yeah, the topic of toxic positivity, I know that was something you wanted to speak about. So what do you mean about that? I've got my ideas, but I'd love to hear what does that mean to you?
So toxic positivity, in my idea, is excessive and ineffective generalization of a happy and optimistic state in any situation,
Right.
and a sense of denial or like minimalization or invalidation of others, or of emotions, whether of the self or of others.
Right.
So
That
this
sounds
can
very clinical definition. How is it?
I well,
How is it like in for something that's like actually affected, or you've observed and witnessed, or maybe experienced yourself?
so for example, you can be heartbroken, like
Mm,
maybe a loved one recently passed away, and you will not grieve,
mm,
like you do not give yourself time to grieve, and you maybe try to pep yourself up to be happy and positive right after, so you can maybe go to work or like go somewhere, do something, just be generally be productive. But yeah, the point is that you need time to sink yourself into the grief, into the negativity, into the sadness in order to diffuse that situation and
Yeah,
then maybe learn from it and grow.
absolutely. Yeah, this is something that I've personally, I think, yeah, I would say struggle with because I think my default state, I am a pretty positive person. My default, and something I remember when I was younger, my mum actually had depression for a bit, and I think it was almost like maybe slightly overcompensation for that. Um, but I, I do notice that yeah, I'm getting better at it, but for a long time it was like, oh, I shouldn't be feeling this way. The one thing that's so common, which I experienced, and it's not a criticism of my parents because I know it wasn't coming from a bad place, but when I was, say, crying, if anyone's watching this and you're a parent, this I think is really relevant. My parents would come over and be like, don't cry, don't be upset, like, don't, don't be sad. And of course they didn't mean it in a like, oh, let's try and give Dave a complex, but the message that kind of goes in is that you shouldn't ever feel sad, or you shouldn't ever cry, and that I think was one of the reasons why I would feel like I shouldn't be feeling this shit. Like it was, yeah, it was a denial, and I think that's very common, especially like in how people are brought up. Like, don't
Yeah.
cry, don't be upset, and it's difficult because if you've got a crying kid, of course, it's going to be hard.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But and also like I feel like this kind of a positive state of mind can be like you can do it to others by trying. I guess it's like it's almost like trying to be supportive, but it's a thin line between being supportive and being disregarding that person's genuine emotions.
yeah,
Or you can do it to yourself, as in you disregard your own genuine human emotions.
mm,
As in, like, for example, if you're feeling sad or heartbroken, you try to sweep that all under the rug and not feel it.
yeah. That
Yeah,
is, it's like one of the. We're talking about heartbroken. It's like I don't know what it's specifically like in Thailand, but in the UK, one of the crappiest pieces of advice, which most people, I will say, most people give you, it's like, oh, you've just broken up with your boyfriend of 3 years. People are like, oh, you need to get out there. You need to get out there, and it's like, no, you don't. Like, that's a really awful piece of advice. You don't need to get out there and start dating people if you've just had your heart broken. That's like the worst piece of advice. Um, but it is like that denial of, oh no, actually something sad has happened, and it's like I need time to process that, and that's kind of normal. It would be maybe more disturbing if you were just like, oh, da, 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 like everything's fine,
yeah,
you know.
yeah. And actually, I think the culture can also affect this too, because in Thailand, there's this culture of um, you know this culture of it's fine, it's okay, like just be relaxed
But
with
survive, or is that,
sabai sabai.
yeah.
Yeah, I think that can also be kind of damaging
Mm,
sometimes. Yeah,
I,
because collectively we kind of uh have to have that like veil of be happy, you know.
yeah,
And
yeah.
beneath the Thailand, the smile of
Yeah, the land of
Thailand.
smiles, the land of smiles.
Yeah,
Yeah. I think, yeah, it is. I've seen the positive because people generally speaking, in my experience in Thailand, are pretty laid back, and that's good because it's not worth stressing about things that are not worth stressing about. But at the same time, if you're in denial of how you're feeling, or if you're in denial of a real problem that needs to be addressed, you know, sabai sabai is not really healthy. It's like just avoidance, and
yeah,
um,
exactly.
yeah, it is difficult because is a lot to do with the context. If anybody's watching this, it's to do with the context of the person, the situation, and what's going on. So it's not like always every situation this applies to, but I agree that is one of the things that is really attractive about Thailand. People are very chill and laid back, and at the same time, just personally, some of the frustrations I've had is like there's a problem we need to deal with, and no one wants to address it, and it's like that. Of course, it happens in all countries, but yeah, I see what you're saying there. Yeah. And how
Yeah.
do you think? What do you think's a way to kind of counter that, or to help people with that? Is maybe what they're in, the environment they're in, or what they're doing to themselves?
I think being aware, like it's hard to not be it's hard to be more aware, I guess, sometimes, when you're going through pain or suffering, and or when you're faced with a problem, sometimes your automatic automatic thought goes to diffusing the situation with maybe something funny, or just be try and be happy. And
Mm.
I guess like certain types of people are more prone to this also. But I think it's important to maybe stop and stay still, and maybe not go out, maybe not find distractions, and talk to yourself, ask yourself what you're actually feeling. Yeah, something about this quarantine, like last when we had the conversation before, we talked about how, for example, if you have your heart broken during the quarantine, it could be a good thing
Yeah.
because you cannot go out, and then you stay home and you're like social distanced, and
Mm.
you're more with yourself, and then you're more aware of your true feelings,
Very
and
much.
then you can deal with that. Yeah.
Yeah. That was with the client I was working with. They just broke up with their partner, and their initial response was, "Oh my god, like why did it have to be in quarantine?" And I yeah, pretty much said what you said. Of course it is difficult, but it's actually you're probably going to be able to move beyond it quicker if you're not in denial of it, rather than just being distracted with work or going out and all of the rest of it. So yeah, I think that's and
Yeah,
as
I mean, even someone like me who's very aware of,
hmm,
who's like, I'm pretty aware, because
you're very aware. Come
yeah, I
on.
study this stuff. But also, like my last breakup like a year ago, I was very positive about it, because I
Yeah,
felt like it was a relationship, and once I got out, I was like unusually happy, and
yeah.
even my feel like what I felt was really unusually happy.
Hmm.
I thought maybe I had bipolar. Yeah, but like after a few months, it hit me that I was actually really damaged, and um, I remember going to my psychiatrist after the breakup, and she said, like, allow yourself to feel it, let the grief, let the pain like fill you up,
Hmm.
and don't try to run away from it, because it will come back
Yeah,
later, and it did.
it does. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's this is really like the heart of everything that I do when I'm working with people. If you're not like the clue is in, I think the word, like the purpose of a feeling is to be felt, but when we won't allow ourselves to feel it, it will just keep knocking at the door. And when I've worked with people with like panic attacks, that's just a symptom of denial of feeling, and that's an extreme example, but it happens on a more micro level, like you just discussed. And just to be clear, we're not saying people shouldn't feel happy. That's not what we're trying to advocate here either. But it's like if something has happened, it's actually you're going to be able to get beyond it quicker if you're willing to be with it. And uniquely to Thailand, most people will have some experience with meditation in whatever capacity. And I think the way that I think of it, not in the mindfulness sense that focus on your breath and breathe, but more like focus on the sensation, like because it physically manifests in your body, which is why people do actually get sick if they've got like lots of stress and depression and such. So it's like being able to just literally feel it.
Yeah.
Mm. Yeah. And what about something that I mentioned just before we got on this? So online, actually, before we do that, something I wanted to mention that can be useful for people watching this is something I was really bad at, and I'm doing my best to try and improve at, is when you're with somebody that has, like, maybe it has just broken up or has gone through a difficult time, is to just to hold space for them and allow them to feel whatever they feel without the need to change. Of course, if that carries on for a long time, you probably need to consider different ways to support them. But that is something that I've really struggled, as in to get my head around, that's actually a very positive thing. Um, Earlier this week, I just spoke to a friend of mine who I hadn't spoke to for about 4 months, and her boyfriend has stage 4 cancer, and obviously, like, she's really upset. And I rather than, oh, I'll be all right, don't what, like, rather than try and cheer her up, I was just letting her talk and letting her whatever she needed to say or wanted to say, and just being supportive, and but not trying to cheer her up, not like, oh, look, don't worry about it, life, da 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 da, give some philosophy. It was like, just be with her, hold space. And that, I think, is, if anybody watching is, they want us to be real supportive to people, maybe friends, family, that just being able to hold space for someone. Of course, if it carries on over a long time, then you may need to address certain things. But before you jump in with, oh, you don't need to feel that way, like, blah 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 blah, just to acknowledge how somebody's feeling is so important. And it's been a real steep learning curve for me. And I think it's something that there's a hell of a lot of value in. And yeah, I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's like from the perspective of someone who's like listening and caring for someone who is um under stress or sadness, depressed or grieving. I
Yeah,
think it's a very powerful thing to kind of just let them feel it and maybe hold their hand through it without trying to intervene.
yeah,
But also from the perspective of the person who is depressed or grieving, is that pain can be pain can be a very beautiful thing. And not as like, pain can be kind of positive sometimes, because it allows you to learn from the situation, and then
hmm,
grow as a person. Because a lot of the time, when you have bad experiences, it's not fun,
yeah,
but it's nice. It's good to it's not nice, but it's good to have experienced it,
yeah.
because you 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 grow, you learn from it, and then you grow as a person.
I
Yeah.
agree. Yeah, I think that's something as well. If we're gonna make any suggestions, if when you've been through a painful experience, to try and uh, obviously acknowledge what you're feeling, but also to learn from it. Because with specifically like relationships, I've also had bad relationships, and they felt bad, and it felt bad afterwards. And there was something to learn, like, because of course it was, I can talk about the other person, but it's like, oh well, I was part of that, and what was I not doing, or what was I doing to create that situation, and what do I need to do if I don't want that again? I think that's an important thing. Like, the pain is there to bring your attention. Like, something's up here. Like, if it's a relationship, something, there's a problem here, and of course it might be the other person primarily, but we're just, if we're not addressing it, then that's also us. And it's like, well, how do I make sure I don't do that same thing again, or I don't get in that same kind of scenario again? So there is lessons to be learned. um,
Yeah,
yeah,
you can sort of pull the experience up and pick it apart and like
yeah,
kind of have a look at like what went wrong, where you went wrong,
yeah,
where they
that's it.
went wrong.
Because rather than, yeah, I think it's be to be clear, like, not just to make yourself the victim, but to look at, well, where was I responsible in that, and how can I, or what signs did I ignore so I'm not doing that again? Like, you know, whether that be a relationship or an eating disorder or anything, it's like, it doesn't just happen. There's a build up that we normally, because we're not acknowledging our feelings, ignore till it becomes like a massive problem.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah.
Also, I I like I think there's something about losing balance to regain balance.
Mm.
As in like a lot of us preach living a balanced life, but sometimes you need to lose balance to regain equilibrium
Mm.
first. You have to lose the balance first, so you kind of like get a feel of what's going on in your life, and then you maybe learn about where you need to stand in
Yeah,
life
I
to
like that.
regain your balance.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Like, this is something that, when I moved to Thailand, like, I spoke to my life coach about, and if you want to find out where you're weak, um, destabilize your life, and you will it will magnify all of your weaknesses very clearly. And I think, for me, actually, like, the whole quarantine situation, corona situation, is like been a huge stress test on society, on economics, and on a personal level. Or where, like, because if you're, when I say weak, I don't mean that in a mean way, but like, we all have weaknesses, and it's like, well, you find out, because when you destabilize stuff, that's when it's like, you're going to find out. It will, and that can be a positive. Like, just me coming to Thailand, um, there was a lot of things that, yeah, that went wrong. It wasn't a smooth journey. I got divorced, had problems with the original job that I was supposed to be doing. There was lots of stress moments within it, and it required that, I kind of purged those things that had been easy to ignore when things were just stable. So it is not to pretend that something's a good situation if it's not, but it can also be, like, positive to find out, well, yeah, these things I hadn't really seen, and it's okay if things are out of balance. I'm able to more clearly notice what's going on inside.
Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
yeah. And has that been something you've been able to, like, do for in your own life?
Yeah, I try, but as I say, like sometimes we don't even know that we're not like feeling what we want to feel, as in
Yeah.
you know, as in like for the example that I gave before about the breakup. Like
Mm.
I actually wanted to wanted to I wanted to be sad. I wanted to try, but at the time it was really hard to find anything negative about it,
Yeah.
which I think I think it's hard for people to realize. Like it was hard for me to realize that I was sad, but yeah,
Mm. In
yeah,
kind of some denial around that.
yeah, a lot of denial. There's so much denial that I literally did not feel a thing.
Mm,
Yeah, and then I kept like I stayed single for like I don't know, half a year until I realized that it was really painful. Yeah.
mm, yeah. And what what's your experience of this as far as like online? Because I posted a thing about this earlier on, and there was I think maybe some misunderstanding. What we were talking, or rather, what the topic was. Some people are like, no, it doesn't exist. Um, what's your experience of how this presents online, and have you any advice around that?
I think how this can be manifested online is, I guess, people giving out suggestions that are not like tailor made for each person.
Yeah,
I think because everything, like as you said before, is all circumstantial and it's a case by case thing. So sometimes when you're giving out advice online and you're being general, like too general,
mm,
it can be kind of toxic if people do not if people do not know that it's a very general thing.
very much. That
Yeah.
literally, like we honestly didn't talk about this before, but like that would be exactly what I was going to say. 'Cause something actually, before I say it, one thing, I don't think people are intentionally going out to cause harm and upset people by doing this sort of stuff. So that's not at all what we're suggesting here. But one thing, a pet peeve of mine, is the generic quote from such and such famous guru that is true in certain circumstances, but not across the board. And it's also not unless you are Gandhi or Martin Luther King, or I'm not saying that you can never quote them, but it's like, well, what it'd be much more interesting if that person was to actually say, well, what this means to me is that, rather than put out a blanket statement. Because uh, yeah, it is well-meaning, but I think sometimes unhelpful. These kind of quotes or ultra positive things that people put online, it's like that. Yeah, like you said, it's true in some circumstances and not others. And because it's coming, but specifically because it is usually coming from like, oh, this was what Gandhi said, or Obama, he's great, man, he said this. And it's like, then there's a pressure, like, shit, well, that person who's amazing said this, and this person that just put this out, well, clearly they're like living it, so why the hell aren't I? And I don't believe that is at all the intention, so I'm not suggesting that for anybody watching. But I am not depressed, but I get fed up with pictures of people on a mountain like this, going, yeah, fuck yeah, or whatever. It's like, yeah, cool, but that's not real life all of the time. Yeah, it can be, and it is part of it, but yeah, it's like the Disneyfication of real life.
Yeah.
Mm.
No, I agree completely. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't think it's an intentional thing that people are doing, but um, it's. I
And
think,
also, like, for example, people not calling like things bad things the way it is.
yeah,
Like you said last time about the quarantine situation or the
yeah,
lockdown situation, that like some people say that it's a blessing
yeah,
because get to you get to do things that you would not get to otherwise, but it's actually a bad situation.
yeah, and again, like that is, it could be a blessing. I think just because you can make something good from the situation doesn't mean um, it's a
Doesn't mean
blessing.
it's a good
Like,
thing.
but yeah, like 40,000 people have died in the UK. Like that's not a blessing. That's a fucking tragedy. Um, and again, like I don't think it's the intention of anyone to like upset people, but if you're, oh, it's a blessing, and you're like, mum's just died, it's like, are you taking the piss? It's not a blessing. My mother's just died. Or your business has just tanked, and now you're like in arrears by 2 months, and they're repossessing your home, and then someone's like, oh, it's a blessing. It feels like literally somebody is taking the piss, and I don't believe that's the intention. um, I don't think so, and it also isn't to say that something good might not come of it. um, but it is kind of unhelpful when, because it's not, yeah, like you said, it's not specific, it's very generic. So for someone it might be a blessing, but unless you're speaking to that individual, just banging out a blanket statement of how, what a wonderful blessing it is, can sometimes, depending on the person receiving it, feel pretty crap.
Yeah, and I think it's like it's disregarding. Yeah, I had a conversation with a friend today about what counts as toxic,
Yeah,
as in toxic positivity, what counts as toxic, and I think the threshold is when you are disregarding someone's feelings or someone's experience, when you're giving out this positivity, you know.
yeah.
Yeah, and in Thailand we also have this thing of like, I don't know if this is everywhere, but for example, if someone is depressed or sad, you would tell them to uh take, like, have an example of someone who is doing worse.
Oh yeah,
Like, yeah,
yeah,
maybe look at that person who's doing worse, or that person who's
yeah,
doing worse. And you shouldn't feel the way you're feeling because you're doing well.
yeah, that,
That I Yeah,
yeah,
I think counts also as toxic positivity, because you're disregarding that person's like true emotions at the time. Because
very
even
much,
though other people are doing worse, you're not other people.
yeah,
You're you.
very much,
Yeah.
yeah. That happened to me. And again, I think it's often coming from a good place. I'm not,
Yeah, it no
but
no one's no
yeah,
one's trying to make you
yeah.
feel bad.
It's like that happened to me when I had depression. I remember my dad saying like, "Well, at least you weren't in a car crash, and you're not disabled." And that just made me feel worse, because I was like, "Well, I can't even cope with this situation. Jesus Christ, like how crap am I?" There are other people that are in much physically worse conditions than I am, and they're doing better. Therefore, I must be even worse. And of course,
Yeah.
that was me, not my dad. But um, what I think the thing that switched for me was when I drew inspiration from that rather than negative comparison. Because for a lot for some time I was, oh god, other people are better than me, I'm not doing as well. And then I switched to, I'm a human, they're a human, that I can do something similar to what they've done, or take inspiration. And so uh, that personally, like if you're watching this and that's maybe you're something struggling with, to, because you can't control what people do on the internet, but to try and be inspired rather than that negative comparison. But also, if you are talking to someone, it depends, because that might really help an individual depending where they are in their, well, in their particular mood, or whatever. That comparison could snap someone out of it, but it's more context specific than just banging it on Facebook, and that this is true for everyone. And that's the danger. Well, that's the thing that's difficult with online stuff. You can't tell who's going to receive it, so it's very hard to be specific with your message. And I don't want to make anyone paranoid about what they should or shouldn't be posting, but it's just to raise the bar. Like, if you're going to put a quote, at least put your own quote. Yeah,
Yeah, very much so. Yeah.
cool.
Just like be generally more, I guess, considerate of other, of like what other people are feeling. Maybe they're not feeling as good when they read it.
Yeah, and also something that I wanted to talk about that I think is really amplified in Thailand that I've noticed is um, that people have almost an online facade or avatar of a perfect life, and there's like a pressure that gets created because everybody looks like, if you check Instagram, they're living the dream, and it kind of gives this fake idea that everybody's just doing amazingly well. No one's got any shit going on in their life, and then there's a pressure to like, oh, I feel I need to do that as well because otherwise there's something wrong with me. And it's again, I'm not saying this to be insulting or condescending to anyone, but one thing that really blew my mind. I was in a coffee shop in Tonglo, and there was a girl getting coffee, taking selfies, and then she walked away and she left the coffee without even drinking it. She basically came there for a little photo shoot, and uh, I was just like mind blown. Like, what? Like, you bought a drink, you came here. Literally, you're basically presenting this idea that you've gone in here and you've drunk this coffee, and it's all smiles and rainbows, but you didn't even drink the coffee. And I spoke to a girl who I was dating at the time. She said that she would go into high end cafes, buy expensive looking cakes with her friend, take photos of them drinking tea with these cool like photogenic cakes, and they wouldn't even eat the fucking cake because they were worried about putting on weight. And but they would put this out there like, oh, we went to have tea at the Rosewood and we had this expensive meal, but it's just bullshit because they didn't even eat the damn cake. And but they felt like they needed to put that out there. And I'm not saying this in a judgmental mean way because I know through those people, they're not like bad people or anything, but it was like just contributing to this superficiality that was really unhelpful because they felt a pressure, that's what they needed to be, but then that put pressure on other people, and it was like this cycle of let's just bullshit and kind of create a trap for themselves.
Yeah, pretty much. Oh, yeah, but like, oh, because online, you like what you see online is kind of the best version, the
Mm,
curated version
very
of
much.
everyone's life. Yeah, and I think sometimes it can be helpful to air out your not air out your dirty laundry, but kind of like maybe if you're not feeling as good, maybe share your feelings
Mm,
online
yeah.
sometimes if it's in a closed circle and you feel safe enough, secure enough.
Mm,
Yeah,
very
because
much.
I kind of do that. I used to do that a lot. But sometimes it gets dangerous because you can't really control your audience. But if you're in like a community that you can control your audience, I think it's very powerful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. I'm doing that right now, actually, because yeah, I realize it's going to help me in becoming a better, well, being a better human being, and also just communicator. Because that, like, just talking about things that are difficult currently, rather than 10 years ago. It's like, no, right now, this is something I'm scared of, and I think, yeah, because it's just accepting it and acknowledging it, and then that's how we grow beyond it. If you're in denial, it will, like we said, keep coming back. But when you acknowledge it and accept it, and are able to actually physically say the words, that in itself is a form of healing and going beyond. And it, of course, if depending on where you are, I would say suggesting that maybe you do this, like May said, within a people that you trust initially. For if you're maybe a bit further down or more resilient, then by all means share it to everyone. But yeah, there is power in that, and your what you did with your TED talk was kind of a form of that. I mean, obviously you had time to prepare and such, but it's just like saying that thing that was scary for you Are you all right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's powerful. So are you doing all right with time, May? I don't want to keep you if you're
Yeah. It it would be great if we can finish up within 10 minutes because it's
cool.
almost cafe.
Yeah, no problems. You got a TV show to watch.
Because like we still have curfew here in
Oh,
Bangkok.
okay. Yeah, I don't want to get you arrested. This is the lengths we go to bring you quality entertainment. We'll be released. We'll have a petition for you. Don't worry, mate. We'll release a Worada. Yeah. So, is there anything, any kind of final words you wanted to say on this topic that you think might be helpful for people watching it?
I I just would like to say just I know that everyone here, most people will say things out of out of um a good place,
Hmm.
but and when you give out suggestions, you give it out from a place of love and care,
Hmm.
but maybe have a look if the person is like ready to receive that.
Yeah.
I guess just be open and aware and considerate of the place that the your audience is,
Very
like
much so.
where your audience is in their journey of like recovery or in their life journey in general, and yeah, just be more considerate of that.
Yeah, that I think that's fantastic advice. If we can just, and also one thing, like also kind of sometimes when it's on a interpersonal level, consider: are you just trying to cheer them up for you because you're uncomfortable with that, or generally for their benefit? Because that's something I've realized. Oh, it's, when someone's sick, it's almost like because it's uncomfortable for us, we need them to be happy. Whereas sometimes the greatest gift you can give someone is just be there with them and hold space. And yeah, that can be a beautiful experience for them to have that, just non-judgmental environment to just be with you. So thanks a lot for doing this, May. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so
And
much for having me.
yeah, yeah, it's been a great conversation, and maybe we can do it again in the future. Okay.
Absolutely. Thank you so
Signing off.
much.
Thank you for everybody tuning in. And yeah, I'll see you soon, mate. Take care.
Bye
Bye.
bye.